Mind-blowing, awe-inspiring. They had it. By the accepted version of history, they had it for about 1,700 years to themselves. The first Hawaiians who arrived there, apparently, and there will be some who dispute this, the exact date is not important, but the bottom line is the Kanaka Maoli, the Hawaiians, the Polynesians who first found Hawaii did so roughly 2,000 years ago in the time of Christ. When people say, if you could go back in time, where would you go? That's where I'd go. I'd be on that Polynesian canoe that was sailing the middle of the biggest ocean on the face of the planet when 1,500 years later, Europeans were afraid of sailing off the edge of the earth, which, wow, we're back to the flat earth thing. Back to the future, eh? When Europeans were deathly afraid of even leaving the coastline and sailing off the earth 1,500 years later, the Polynesians were sailing the open ocean of the Pacific and navigating amongst these islands in the biggest ocean in the world. And here's another example of the ridiculous arrogance of us. Fucking Columbus. Are you fucking serious, man? He didn't discover shit. All of it was discovered by dark-skinned people who we've never acknowledged, and that's just the reality. The Hawaiian people, many of them, from first contact, 1776, to about 100 years later, 90%, I might be a little off on that figure, I should remember it, but it's right around 90%, was wiped out. This was a much more diplomatic form of genocide, however. We didn't just mow them down with weapons, we just brought disease. And to say that we didn't know that we were bringing disease that's bullshit too. We knew damn well it was every bit as effective, in fact, more so. And 90% of the population wiped out. We nearly exterminated the Hawaiian people. And those who survived, and more accurately, they're known as the Kanaka Maoli. Those that didn't die from disease, many died from what has been characterized, and I believe accurately so, as a broken heart. The love for the land and the sea that they came from, this beautiful blessing that they had been provided, was ripped right out from under them. And before it was ripped out from under them, they knew colonialism was coming, and they formed the first nation outside of the Western world that was a sovereign, recognized nation. This is a story that very few people know. And I believe it's a very important story because Hawaii is used as a military outpost. It has every branch of the U.S. military. Pacific Command is there. Pacific Command, in its own mind, has jurisdiction over the largest swath of the planet. Literally, the United States, the empire, through Pacific Command, considers a massive area that goes through all of the Pacific Ocean, into Asia, into Australasia and New Zealand and South America and Central America and to the West Coast and so on and so forth. It's used as an outpost for an empire which has proven its complete lack of morality and very aggressive, violent policies. It has been turned into the exact opposite of what it is. And the Hawaiians who had this beautiful blessing for all this time have watched it all stolen from them. And many have died from a broken heart. They really couldn't handle it. I admire that connection to the land and to the sea. I don't have that. I was born in California. I don't give a fuck about California. I'm envious to some degree of the Palestinians and the Hawaiians and other people around the world who feel that real connection to the land and to the sea. And I've had to adopt places because the land I come from is all fucking stolen land anyway, based on a fucking genocide which has never even been owned up to. How can I feel a connection to a place like that? I don't care how comfortable it is. So anyway, out of duty to my Hawaiian brothers and sisters as well, I say, take the time perhaps to listen to their story. I did make a documentary way back in 2001 called The United States of Hypocrisy. It's a big part of the reason why I literally had to flee United States, or else I would have ended up in prison for some shit I never did. Just put some drugs or some explosives in my house, and that would have been the end of me, done. Fortunately, I do have a brain that functions, and I did the best I could to protect myself, and so I sought political asylum in Holland, and there you go. That's a whole other big story. But we'll get into the current events as I see it. I see a lot of cynicism amongst people. I think I understand where that comes from. If you were to, let's take a poll here. If you consider yourself, let's say realistically on both sides, all right? If you're going to be honest, delusional optimism or pessimism, please just discount yourself. Just purge yourself of the poll. Do you consider yourself realistically optimistic? Please put your hand up. Okay. If you consider yourself realistically pessimistic, put your hand up, please. Okay, it's fairly close. If I were to guess, I'd say the optimism is a little bit greater than the pessimism. I think even that is probably a positive development, to be honest. Here's why I'm optimistic, but realistically so. If you want to maintain tyrannical control over a mass of people, I was talking about this earlier with a young sister. There she is over there. There's a couple things that you're going to need to maintain if you're a tiny minority. I mean, and we're not even talking about 1%. It's not 1%. Put a few zeros in front of that one, and that's who's running the world. If you want to maintain control over the masses, there's a couple things that you're going to need to keep in place, because if you don't, you're not going to maintain that position. One of them is control and access to information. Information is power. That's something that is said and most people will acknowledge, but if you really, really get down to it, it's very profound. Information is power. Big time. Big time. Historically, we've not had it. Unless you come from, the higher fucking classes, the kings and the queens and, all the rulers throughout the ages and whatnot, trust me, you did not have access to the information. There is an entire history that, as smart as many of us are in this room, we don't fucking know, man, because that stuff is still hidden. But we have access to information that previously was not even remotely obtainable. We have that now. We don't have any excuses now. You could have made an excuse back in the early 90s and the 80s and whatnot, but to make an excuse now is pathetic, quite frankly. Go fucking onto Google and punch in a fucking key phrase on any subject, and if you have even an ounce of fucking critical thought capability, you can make very sensible, logical, intelligent, wise conclusions. To say otherwise is bullshit, scapegoating, pathetic. You can understand. Some will say that the powers that be, the internet's all part of the program. It's all part of, the whole design. It's going to be used. They're going to crash that along with everything else. And I'm willing to accept that argument. I'm willing to accept that possibility. The internet is all one part of it. However, where I might disagree, or I will disagree with you, is that that's a fucking mistake. You made a mistake, a tactical error. Really. You have, as a consequence of allowing even a limited yet a significant amount of access to information to infect many people within society, myself included. And once you infect people with what it is to be human, as my good friend Vittorio would have said, stay human, I would argue with him about get back your humanity. So if he were still around, I'd argue with him about that. But nonetheless, we are not acting in a humane way. We are conditioned, much like chickens put into a cage, 6 strong, to a little fucking area. You know what chickens do when you do that to them? Oftentimes, they cannibalize each other. Tell me when you see a chicken cannibalizing another chicken in an environment, a natural environment where food and access to all the things that are required, where does this chicken do that? The chicken never fucking does that. but stick them in a cage and they'll do that. That's what we are. We're chickens in a cage. And we're doing a bunch of shit we'd never do if we had any kind of sanity and real ability to live and be human. So we are insane. We are in a collective state of insanity, literally. But the access to information has caused this spurt of growth, which is unparalleled. Unparalleled. And I can tell you, it is painful to sit by and watch the willful ignorance of humanity. When 9/11 happened, and of course I didn't know all the answers, I still don't know all the answers, but I knew enough to know that everything that was being said was pretty much bound to be the opposite of the truth. And anyone who was buying that the United States would be seriously fighting terrorism, and what? We're going to invade and occupy a nation because it has weapons of mass destruction and may use those weapons, which we happen to provide in the first place. How did anybody in their right mind buy into that bullshit unless you are completely fucking programmed? You are not thinking for yourself if you bought that shit. Now, that was just 12 years ago. Think about it. 12 years ago. That's not even a blink of an eye in terms of human history. Seriously, it's nothing. Nothing. And yet, today, let's find someone who says, well, we had to do that, boy. He had weapons of mass destruction, and shit, man, that was a real threat to us. And boy, in 45 minutes, he could have been hitting Britain and all. Tell me one person who would say that shit. Yet, a large percentage of the population bought that crap. It was always a ridiculous fucking argument. And we insult our own intelligence by having ever entertained the idea. And the idea that the United States, the fucking terrorist, ultimate fucking terrorist, which, hey, shit, let's go back to Vietnam. 20 million bombs dropped on that country, more than all of World War II combined. Agent Orange, millions of gallons. There are still Vietnamese suffering from the genetic damage of that shit to this day. And we're leading a war against terror? Never mind the Mujahideen and our support for Al-Qaeda. We are Al-Qaeda. Just as much as we're ISIS. We are ISIS. We are fucking ISIS. We, through the approval of our proxies, are ISIS. Saudi Arabia, this monstrosity of medieval fake Islam, is our fucking best friend and ally. The last fucking military arms deal between the United States and Saudi Arabia was for $60 billion fucking dollars. $60 billion worth of arms, which they are using right now for many months to slaughter the poorest fucking people in the poorest nation in the Middle East. And it's not even talked about now. At least the Palestinians got themselves on the map. For decades, nobody fucking did anything for them. At least, and you know what it took to get our attention? Suicide bombing. That was where we were all forced to fucking, and of course the system used that to say, look at the Palestinians. Look how fucking violent they are. They just hate the Jews. They just want to drive them all to see bullshit. They fucking did what any desperate person would do eventually. And I'll tell you what, if it happened to the American people, if they were occupied and treated like that for that many decades, holy shit. Holy fucking shit. We would have been blood in the streets everywhere. We would have been killing our own people. You collaborating? Oh my God. The Palestinians have been subjected to this and carried themselves with as much dignity as anyone could be expected to do. And the suicide bombings were merely a symptom of a horrendous fucking policy that we all sat by and watched. And shame on the fucking so-called Muslims and Arabs in the neighboring countries who turned their back on the Palestinians. They continue to do that to this day. We have as our best friends and allies in the Middle East, two primary nations. Saudi fucking Arabia. Oh, we care about women, don't we? Yeah, oh yeah, those poor Afghani women. Oh boy, my heart fucking bleeds for them. Oh boy, it breaks my heart. Saudi women, well, so they can't drive and they can't vote and they can't go out in public on their own, and yeah, but it's okay, not so bad. We care about women. And Israel. So we've got a Saudi, medieval, Salafi, Wahhabi monstrosity as our best friends and allies. And then we've got Israel. Apartheid is a very kind word to use for that. It's well beyond that. This nation has been, from the very beginning, committing a policy of genocide. The legal definition of the word, according to Black's Law Dictionary, which according to law in the Western world, at least in England and America, this is the legal dictionary. What is genocide according to the legal definition of the word? To destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, or religious group. That's the definition. To destroy in whole or part a national, ethnic, or religious group. Is there anybody here who thinks that Israel is not meeting that definition of the word genocide in what it's doing to Palestine? It is committing genocide. And who's their best friend and ally? And Europe. And Europe as well. What have we done to stop that? Have we done as much as we're capable of doing? No. The answer is self-evident. May I ask you a huge favor? Could I get one more? I need to drink something. If it's not, I could take the water, but I'd love another beer if someone wouldn't mind getting me one. So let's get into the optimistic side of it, yeah? Did you read my mind? Are you serious? That's the 100 monkey. That's us communicating beyond the literal physical part of it, boy. Thank you, my brother. Let's get optimistic and yet realistic. I think one of the most amazing examples of a reason to be optimistic happened 2 years ago. And there are more examples, for sure. In fact, I see them all the time. Keep in mind that, when even though we're not watching the mainstream news, most of us, I watch mainstream news because it's a great way to know what the agenda is. So it's valuable in that regard. Anybody who thinks they're seriously watching the news to understand what's going on, is partially brain dead for sure. So the news is nothing but negative shit. For the most part, it's all negative shit. And that would explain the cynicism. If you're being pumped full of negative shit, then you're probably not going to be very positive. But if you are a little bit more of an astute observer and actually looking at what problems we face and what potential solutions we have, there are solutions for everything. Energy, for instance. We fight these wars for oil and stuff. Fuck, we haven't needed oil since at least Tesla. And really, it goes beyond that. Why are we addicted to petroleum? Because it's a means of control. That's all. We don't have, and this canard, this false bullshit about, solar and wind and all that. Well, fuck, we don't even need that. We've got free energy waiting for us. And that was proven by Tesla long ago. And many others. We have solutions to our problems, but they bombard us with one fucking tragedy and injustice after another. So we become cynical. But when you begin to take an honest look at what's happening in the world, you'll see solutions. And let me give you an example of what I consider to be a profoundly powerful example of what kind of power we have. If you recall a couple years ago, right about this time, we were hearing an awful lot about the red line. The red line. Chemical weapons. If Bashar al-Assad uses chemical weapons, boy, that's the red line. We gotta go in. Because we gotta help those Syrian people, because boy, we love the Syrian people. Oh, we care about them so much, like the Afghani women. Oh boy, we love them. Oh, they're so hard. Oh, my heart breaks. So, Jesus, man, we have to help these people. What are we, barbarians? We're not gonna help these people? And if he uses chemical weapons, boy, we have to do something. It was so pathetically obvious, but only because the awareness of false flags was there. Go back to 2001, when a blatant false flag was done. From the first moment, it was ridiculous. And if we're to be honest, in this room, how many people on 9/11 thought, this is clearly not what we're being told, it is some form of false flag? I think if people are being honest, okay, it's a minority. That's got to be somewhat honest here. I'm going to think that some of you may be raising your hand and not being telling the truth. But nonetheless, I apologize if I'm falsely accusing you. The bottom line is most people did not think that our own governments would be involved in that. And let me be clear about this. Governments are just a bunch of pawns. It's not like George Bush engineered this. That was one of the most ridiculous initial. Do you think George Bush... Do you think George Bush does anything? Do you think he truly makes any decisions? Do you seriously think that George Bush is sitting there at a fucking table in the Oval Office and contemplating policy and dictating policy? Are you fucking serious? He's a puppet. They're all puppets. The last president that wasn't a puppet was John F. Kennedy. Which I have to say on that note, it is one thing that I feel a real love, that at least we had one president. We can get into arguments about some of the others that people want to think are great and whatnot. I believe really, quite frankly, there were some others, you have to go back quite a bit, but wow, that man, he must have known he was a dead man. He had to have known. He wasn't a stupid man. Anyway, so they were doing all this same bullshit 2 years ago. The red line, and if he uses chemical weapons, then we don't have a choice. We have to go in then. And because people have become aware between 2001 and 2013, that's 12 years, right? 12 years. Really, that's not a lot of time. But the understanding from 2001 to 2013 was so profound that people in 2013 were like, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. All the polls, this is polls by the system itself, confirm this. They have no reason to lie about more people not approving of escalating the violence in Syria. Why would they lie and exaggerate the no camp? No, we don't want it. Why? There is no reason why they would do that. So, even the statistics we have from the system itself says that, from what I recall, 9% of the American public supported an attack, an escalation in Syria. 9%. When you consider the amount of resources and propaganda and lies that were being used that were almost identical to Iraq just 10 years earlier, look at the difference. Look at it. Look at it. Seriously. Massive. Massive. This goes back to access to information. Access to information. just by knowing what a false flag is and how it's used to manipulate people, just the knowledge of that one fact is powerful. Never mind all the other things we have access to. And here's what happened. And be clear about this. This is what happened. They were doing it, man. They were doing it. They were doing all the things they do to escalate it then. And the UK Parliament, Cameron got up there, oh, we have to go. So they were going to, vote on it. The U.S. Congress is the most servile, disgusting, bend over, take it up the fucking ass bunch of traitors on the planet. Disgusting. And even the U.S. Congress could not vote on it. You know why they never even voted on it? Because if they voted on it and did what their masters would have liked to do in direct opposition of virtually everyone who has even one brain cell within their brain, that would have necessitated an action which I can assure you would not be favorable to the powers that be. And while they foster revolution, boy, oh boy, are they using that one to fucking maximum effect. This is not exactly what you want for the program. You do not want an entire population of Americans, many of whom who are veterans who have fought in your bullshit wars, who happen to hold up a picture, which I liken to Tiananmen Square, or the Olympic athletes in, I forget the year, who put their hand up in 68. Iconic, seize the moment. And American soldiers took pictures of themselves with signs that said, I will not fight for Al-Qaeda in Syria. Pre-ISIS. If they simply followed the orders, I am absolutely convinced that the powers that be knew. If we just order them, we own them. Literally. Many of them are pedophiles. In the UK, that's been talked about earlier. Let there be no mistake. I wouldn't want a prime minister who isn't a fucking pedophile, quite frankly. If I was a psychopath running the world, I only want a pedophile, and I want a videotape of him fucking a little boy or a little girl. I want it. And I will not fucking have somebody who's a prime minister unless I have that. And that may sound crazy, but I can assure you a very effective form of control. Very effective. And if you think that's not possible, open the mind a little bit more. It's more than possible. The powers that be knew damn well that with no consent, none, and keep in mind, how big were the protests in 2013? Not very big, were they? Kind of like almost nothing kind of thing, right? There you go. What the fuck difference? A fucking day protest? Fuck. I hate that stuff. It's a social gathering. Quit bullshitting. We all get together. Oh boy, aren't we so conscious and humane? And oh God, we're so good. Oh, we're great. Oh, we so care. Bullshit. It's a social gathering. Pat yourself on the fucking back. That's what it is. It doesn't make a difference. A day protest is bullshit. If you're going to protest, put your fucking body on the line. Do it for a week, a month. Block fucking gates. Block roads. Fucking do something real. Make your point. Don't fucking sit there on a social gathering for a month or a day. And the bottom line is, it didn't take protests, which I think tells you a lot. The only reason why they did not fucking go into Syria at that time is because there was zero consent. Oh. And there you have it. There you have it. They need our consent. They need our consent. Make no fucking mistake. And what I mean by consent is, if you have a day protest and it happens to be 500,000 or 1 million or even a couple million, Great. Go and give a fuck about that. But if we know that you don't buy it, that's a bit of a problem. Because if we just tell our puppets to do what we want them to do, and they do that, you might finally find some fucking balls and actually do something. No offense to the women, because many of the women have bigger balls than most men. I can tell you that right now. That's the power we have. We have this power. And where does that come from, that power? It comes from awareness. You have to be aware. Access to information. You have to be aware. If you're aware, well, can't fool someone who's not only aware, but let's take it another step further, and it's the path that I've walked for some time. If a bullet enters my head tomorrow, be aware, access to information, and I am no more on this mortal coil, don't you cry out your fucking tear for me. I have lived a life that's so rich that most of you probably have. Let's take another step further, and it's the path how rich that life is. Now, sometimes, I don't care how much money you have, or whatever you got, I have no more about what I've experienced. And the reason why I've experienced that is because I've also learned some truths. Read my mantra here. Let's take justice. Fuck peace. No justice. Fuck actually. I'd rather die. Thank you very much. Peace without justice is a peace not worth having. The process, in the simplistic form, to a better world is truth. First step. That's the phase we're in right now. That's the phase. More and more people are becoming aware of the truth. Once you understand the truth, once you understand the problem, if you don't understand the truth, you don't understand the problem. How the hell are you going to solve your problem when you don't even know what the fucking problem is? It's silly, isn't it? You need to know what the problem is. Once you're aware of the truth, now you're in a position to effect a necessary prerequisite for peace, which is justice. Because somebody who is cowed in submission, who's not fighting back with violence, is not actually feeling any kind of reward for the peace that you offer. They're simply cowed in submission. But they will rise at some point. They will. We are in that phase right now. We don't need to protest. And in fact, if we're going to do anything, we really, really, really need to be creative. Don't come at them from the angles that they've analyzed from millions of different places. They know our psychology. They know our indoctrinated tactics. It's all fucking tired and boring, and it doesn't affect them. Come at them from angles which I couldn't tell you. Doc, you're all creative beings, man. You've got ideas and perspectives that I couldn't possibly have. That's the power that we have. Be creative. Come at them from every angle. I have my role. And those who are more conservative or more diplomatic and whatnot, many of them would point the finger at me and say, no, he harms the cause, he does this, that, and the other. That's okay. I don't give a fuck about their gratification or anything like that. I do what I do because it is who I am. It is who I am. And what I do is help push out the boundary. Push out the boundary so that the more sensible people, the more diplomatic people can come in behind me, whose position was radical and unacceptable before people like me, but I make it acceptable. I push it way the fuck out there. But that's my role. That is my role. That's who I am. And I'll tell you what, if there is something that is a blessing of all blessings, it is to know who you are. Who are you? Really? Come to a place of understanding. You should be angry. My anger is based on love. I don't know how anybody who feels love could not feel anger. Would you feel angry if your child was blown to bits? Why? Because you love your child. Are you wrong for feeling rage? Why do you have to be somebody who lives through that experience and not feel the rage for those who are going through that? Especially when you pay for it. We have much more power that we'd like to take credit for. And that, I will end what I'm saying with this one message, because it is key as far as I'm concerned. There is a saying, excuses are like assholes. Everyone's got one. how fucking true that profane statement is. Excuses are pathetic. The truth of the matter is that the only way that this world will change for the better is when we, on an individual level and a collective level, take responsibility for the world that we live in. If we are not responsible, understand the magnitude, the profound consequences of your belief that we, you personally, being whatever liberal, doing the right thing or whatever it is that you do, that we are not responsible. If we people, we the taxpayers, we the citizens, if we are not responsible, if someone else, whoever it is responsible, what are the chances that we're going to be able to change things if we're not responsible? Is it going to change? Are the powers that be going to change out of the goodness of their heart? Are they going to see the light, as it were? That ain't going to happen. And we're going to take ourselves straight down the path of total self-destruction, and we're going to fucking dishonor ourselves in the worst way, because as it stands right now, our children do not have a future. We, this generation right now, is sacrificing the future of all life on planet Earth, including our children. Wow. What a fucking amazing thing to do. I want no part of that generation. I'll be happy to fucking die before I'm money. So I don't care what the odds. I don't care how fucking daunting it is. I know one last truth. I'm going to add one more. If you understand the world, if you understand life the way I do, I've taken the time to look at that word death. Death. What does that mean? Death. For an atheist, all we have is life and death. That's it. You're in life, you have life. When you're dead, that's it. There's nothing else. I don't agree with this, and I could talk about it for some time, but I respect that that's your opinion. But when you're like me, you understand, while not being religious, but being spiritually aware, that actually, there really is no such thing. What do you mean by death? You mean end? End of it all? That's it? The experience, all of it, it's done? It's over? If you believe that, well, fuck, it's easy to control you, I can assure you. Because if I threaten your life and I have the power to do so, trust me, you're going to fucking bow if you need to protect that only thing that you have that is of value. But if you're like me, you know that while I fucking love this life, I'm so blessed in so many ways. I have people in my life, my children, my wife, family members, friends that I love deeply, and I would much prefer to live a life and be with them, especially in a better world. How much would I love that? But it is not the be-all, end-all. And I'm not concerned at all about where I'm going. And if I have an opportunity to meet my maker, if a bullet enters my head tomorrow, and that's it, no more time, no more speeches, no more fucking love, no more making love, no more sharing moments with my children and all that sort of shit. If that doesn't happen again and I get to go up to the pearly gates and meet my maker, I'll tell you what, I'm going to look God square in the eye and say, boy, that's tough down there. Do I have to do that again, or can I please go to some part of the universe where there is sanity? I hope so. But I'm not afraid of death. There is no such thing. There is no such thing. And this precious thing that we have called life, I will have exercised it to the hilt. I have not chosen to forego my freedom, nor my liberty, nor my life, and I've chosen to exercise it in a way which I can assure you, if you take that path, if you do the right thing, substitute for me, get rid of that, the right thing. Oftentimes, the right thing, trust me, your friends will say, are you fucking nuts? Why are you doing that? Do the right thing. I promise you, even if you fucking die, you won't die. You won't die. You'll be human for a day or a moment. And the reward for that is greater than anything you can imagine. Nothing in the material world comes close to that. One moment of that is worth more than a lifetime of bowing. So I believe I've said everything that I meant to say tonight. Thank you all very, very much. Love and respect.
you. Thank you so much, Ken Okeffe. Thank you. So
I'm giving that, by the way. I said I would.
we are going to do Q&A.
I'm giving part of that to Johan, Judith, and also Mark and Ole as well. I mean, really, all of the speakers today, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Really, I'm blessed for the experience. I've learned a lot. I always love to be around people who express their humanity and basically say the things that you're not supposed to say if you're looking out for your own self-interest. So that part of that goes to Johan, though. I really was inspired by what he was talking about.
Great. So any questions? Yes. Great. So if you stand up and speak into the mic.
Okay. I'll just tell you that in Denmark, you have the possibility to not to pay tax for war. You can ask for taking it off if you have a real. If you have the right.
I get the point. Yeah, you'd opt out of paying for military. Yeah, beautiful, really beautiful, really. And I mean, all credit. Oh, okay. Well, if you don't have it, make sure it happens.
Okay. One down there. Yeah. 1 second. I'll on my way.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say what a refreshing interview, and then I'd like to know what is the technicality that you also have an answer for in terms of defending citizenship that you mentioned in the middle of your speak. You mentioned a technicality in terms of defending citizenship, and you do you remember?
I'm sorry. What's the question?
The question is, what is the technicality that you also have an answer for in terms of defending citizenship?
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand.
You said you had a response to that too. Like.
Oh yes. Shit, I'm trying to remember the context. I did have the answer. I wasn't bullshitting, but I'm trying to remember the context. So, right. Technically, all we're doing is paying the interest on the debt. Technically, we're not actually paying for the military adventurism. All we're doing is paying the interest on the debt. So technically, we're not actually paying for the wars. We're merely paying off the debt. That would be the cleverest argument someone could make, and factually, it's true. So if someone wants to say, "Oh, we're not actually paying," okay, whatever. You got me on a technicality, but it's still bullshit. We are paying for it. We're paying for mass murder.
Any more questions? Yeah, I'll be right there. 1 second.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would like to ask you, what's your view on the military's, what's it called, the militarization of the police?
Good choice. If I was in charge and a psychopath and drunk on my own power and doing anything and everything I could to cling to power, I'd say that's very logical. Makes sense. But again, I actually love all of this draconian shit that they're doing. I think it's great because the powers that be, what they want, I believe it was either Mark or Johan who was talking about this. Basically, they want absolute control, total control. They want to be gods, basically. They want to be gods. And it was Johan who said this. And so in their lust for godlike power, seeking absolute control, this is one of the mechanisms that they're using. They could have, in my opinion, the powers that be, could maintain 95% control over virtually everything if they only maintained a reasonably sized middle class. That's a buffer. If you keep the middle class large enough to be comfortable and willfully ignorant, well, they'll be the buffer between you and the poor people who are just not fucking happy with the whole thing at all. As long as you have a reasonably sized middle class, you could maintain that indefinitely. But that's not enough for them. And we see this over and over. Hawaii, same thing. They could have cut a deal with the Hawaiians long ago, and the Hawaiians would have accepted something, but not even an ounce of decency. Total control is what they want. So, good. I'm glad you want that, because sitting here in this world where you have 90% control is sickening watching this. But if you want to keep forcing the issue, great. Mandatory vaccinations in California, excellent. Love it. Codex Alimentarius, fucking great. Chemtrails, awesome. Fucking transhumanism, brilliant. Bring it on. All that shit, bring it on. Bring it on, because it forces us to do something. The more obvious and blatant it gets, the more we have to do something. The more that it's just sort of, it's there, but it's not that bad. The more we could go on in this fucking ridiculous state forever. So I love it. I think it's great. And I'm happy for the big show. Let's do it. Excellent.
So, based on that, do you think that Americans should vote for Donald Trump in the upcoming election?
Have you seen the movie Idiocracy? President Camacho coming up. Love that movie. Team America, that's another good one. Love that one. He's the best option. I mean, that's the sad reality. I mean, in all honesty, I don't give a fuck what you think about him. He is the best option. Hillary Clinton, whoa, holy shit, man, are you serious? I mean, George Bush looks like a fucking intellect of all fucking proportions compared to this psychopath whose criminal history is so undeniable, it's not even funny. So between Jeb Bush or Hillary Clinton or fucking Donald Trump is the best option. So in answer to your question, yeah, I think he'll win. If it's legit, I don't know. He's such a self-righteous, egotistical fucking prick that, you know, I don't think he has near enough balls and integrity to really face up to what, you know, he'd have to do to actually turn the country around for the better. You have sort of an opposite, similar but opposite, like Jeremy Corbyn. I've met Jeremy Corbyn. He actually supported some things that I was doing, Trade Not Aid for Palestine. I have video of him supporting what I created. He's an honorable man. I mean, you know, he's got a history in the parliament and whatnot. That is, you know, fuck, man, you can't dispute it. I'm not a socialist. I don't like socialism. I don't like it. Because I have much more faith in humanity. I don't want a fucking government giving a handout to everyone. We need to level the playing field, and trust me, people can take care of themselves. As long as the playing field is not level, then, well, yeah, you need welfare. You need a fucking socialist state to give at least some level of humanity to people. But that is not the answer. A fucking big government that doles out a bunch of money to fucking people who cannot take care of themselves? What kind of existence is that? So I think, yeah, if I were American and I was confined by the bullshit limited choices you have, I'd vote for him, quite frankly. I'm not that person, but that's who I'd vote for.
He seems like the most honest of the candidates.
Yeah. I mean, you know, he says that, you know, he's a billionaire, so even though he's gone bankrupt several times, which is fucking great business. That's the way it works anyway. But I mean, you know, he's pathetic. I mean, come on, he's such a egotistical maniac. He's like an Alex Jones of fucking presidential candidates or something. And it doesn't mean that Alex Jones doesn't say things that are valuable, because he does. But, you know, so many of his conclusions are ridiculous, and I don't know why anybody would entertain it. But, yeah, he's the best option, isn't he?
Bernie Sanders.
He's a fucking Zionist. You know, he's like the soft Zionist, you know, I mean, that's what they have, like the Chomskys. And I've met Chomsky, by the way, you know, and I love him for all the things that he's said and done that helped me grow and understand. But his position on 9/11 and his position on Kennedy, you know, it's ridiculous. He's a very smart man. There ain't no way in hell he believes what he's saying about that. He's obviously compromised. And these are the people that you need to be most wary of. You know, most of what they say is true. Fuck, it worked on me, and I still love Chomsky. I do. I'm sorry for him that he's saying these things. I mean, either the fear of God or maybe he's a willing participant in this? I don't know. I mean, he struck me as a genuine man, but Donald Trump is the best option, according to the rigged system we've got.
So my actual question was, if you consider yourself a realistic optimist, how do you feel about the potential of the automated soldier coming into play in the future, and whether that maybe clears the board for the power that we hold as people?
It's a very serious. I mean, they've predictive programming, right? Mark was talking about this earlier. You know, look at the Terminator movies and things like this. I mean, it's predictive programming. They're preparing us for that stuff. So it's a very dangerous reality. You know, we have to be aware of this. I mean, having robots. I mean, we already have a form of that in drones. You know, it's only actually, I'm sure they're using drones that aren't even controlled by humans. You know, from what we're allowed to know, that is the only way it works. But come on, I mean, there's the chemtrails. Fuck, they don't even need pilots for that. From what I understand, they've got that shit going all over the place, killing people all over the place. They don't even need a pilot. They don't need someone on the ground. They can do that right now. It's a very dangerous thing. Very dangerous thing. And I concede that there is no. I do not know which way this world is going to go. I'm more optimistic because I feel deep in my gut, my intuition, that we as people have a very, very strong constitution and ability to do things that go way beyond what we are thinking right now. We have no idea of our own power. And I have faith that the vast majority of humans, even with all this conditioning, even the 6 chickens in a cage that are cannibalizing each other, even with all that stuff, it's remarkable how decent and honorable people are. Palestine being a perfect example. I have met people who have been through hell, and the way they carried themselves, the way they acted, their attitude and opinion towards their oppressor blows me away. I'm not capable of what these people do, and I've been so inspired so many times, I can't help but feel optimism at what we're capable of. It's that simple, really.
Hi, I'm Simon. I'm going back to the Corbyn question, which we talked about a bit earlier. Do you think the UK government, and by the UK government I mean the real government, not the puppet government, do you think they're going to kill him or control him?
My concern about Jeremy is, I think now is the time for warriors. You need a warrior. You need somebody with balls of steel, and for a woman, the equivalent. I don't think Jeremy has that. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but I have already I've seen him already sort of disavow people that he had supported. There's an organization, Dar Yassin. Remember, Dar Yassin was the first slaughter in Palestine, which was meant to send a message to the rest of the Palestinians. Yeah, you can stay. No problem. We're going to fucking kill your ass if you fucking stay. So that's up to you, stay or go. But Dar Yassin, that was the message. And that's remembered each year. And there's a man who is who was one of the organizers, and he's a Jew, or at least he was born a Jew, recognized as a Jew, and he's a self-hating Jew, and he fucking questions. He doesn't question. I mean, he recognizes the obvious with regard to the so-called Holocaust with copyright marks and whatnot. That it's fucking bullshit. And it doesn't mean many Jews weren't killed. Of course they were. Many Jews were killed and tortured and so on and so forth. But the official version of that is beyond ridiculous. And of course, you're not meant to say that. And, he used to attend these Dar Yassin Remembers events on a yearly basis. And I've seen him basically disavow this man. Political expediency, whatever it is, but a warrior wouldn't do that. You don't do that. You stand by your principles. Even if I don't agree with this man, even if I find his conclusions incorrect, I support what he has done. I admire his commitment to this cause, which is very just. And that's what you're saying. A warrior would say that. That's not what Jeremy Corbyn has said. I understand why he's doing it. I just don't think that that's the kind of character that has the strength to confront the powers that be, because they will kill you if you do not do what they tell you to do. So I think he'll be just like Syriza, in Greece. Look at the platform. Fuck, they voted him into a platform of no austerity measures. They even held a referendum after being voted into power. And look at that weak, good-looking, fucking bullshit banker and what he did. I'd like to think that Jeremy Corbyn wouldn't be that pathetic, but it wouldn't surprise me. I hope not. I have to say, love and respect to you, Jeremy. I hope you do the right thing. I mean, he did help me. It didn't help me succeed in the agenda, but at the end of the day, he was an honorable man, and he's been an honorable man. I don't like socialism, so I totally disagree with him on all that shit. But nonetheless, I wish him the best. I hope he has it, but I don't see the warrior spirit in him, and I believe the warrior spirit is really necessary right now.
Okay. Yes. I have a question about the situation in eastern Ukraine, in Donbass. What is your opinion about the situation there? And do you agree with Mr. Vladimir Vladimirovich policy in Ukraine when it comes to Crimea and the whole very difficult situation around the Ukraine? Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think when you think for yourself, it's all pretty much self-evident. I mean, we can listen to Kerry and Newland and all these other prostitutes and all the bullshit they're saying, and if you take that seriously, I would question your ability to actually think for yourself big time. I mean, all of what they're saying is absolute bullshit. If we let's put it this way. Let us say that provably, in the public realm, undeniably, that Russia had pumped billions into Mexico to stir the shit and to get a government in place that would favor Russian policy at the expense of American policy. I don't think it would have taken more than about 5 seconds for America to start bombing and basically, funding whatever fucking nutcases would have been fighting and so on and so forth. We look at what Russia has done. All the accusations, it's all bullshit, isn't it? Where is the empirical evidence? And even if they were supplying those in eastern Ukraine with weapons, what's wrong with that? It's their border. And these people want the help. They're asking for it. And clearly the government in Kiev, does anybody seriously think this is like a representative government that is looking out for the interests of the Ukrainian people as a whole? They're nothing but puppets, an oligarch in place, a pathetic, compromised, corrupt son of a bitch who's nothing more than a puppet. Bend the fuck over and take your orders. That's all it is. And it seems to me very self-evident. I don't know why anyone would take anything that's being said by the United States government or its fucking puppets seriously. But I love one thing about the Ukraine situation. I think it's great. As I said, I love all this shit. Good. Keep doing that. Excellent. How long is Europe going to pay the price for this insane American policy? How long? Well, okay, if you're willing to carry on paying the price for an insane American policy, which makes no sense at all, okay, but I guess I have faith in humanity, and that includes the people of Europe, because I just don't see how you're going to continue to fuck yourselves over for American policy. I don't see how that's going to continue. So it's good. Great. Keep it on. Go on. Excellent.
Yes, Ken, thank you so much for a very inspiring and awesome lecture so far. I would like you to go into the awakening within the armed forces, maybe of the world, but especially the US, where you come from. How do you see the role of that awakening, the warrior spirit that you talk about? How important is that, and how can we help facilitate the awakening in the armed forces?
Yeah, excellent question. That's another experience. In my personal experience, especially when I did the Human Shield action to Iraq, I'd renounced my citizenship. It was on the back of 9/11. Most all of the American military and all that shit would have considered me just an out-and-out traitor. And boy, has that changed. Boy, has that changed. I'll give you an example. When I have gone back to Hawaii, which is mistaken for the United States, it's a stolen nation, indisputably. It's not America. It's a military fucking outpost. And so I've never intended to return to America. When I have gone back, I've gone to Hawaii. So I'm obligated to make that distinction. When I have gone back to Hawaii, I went back, I think it was 2010 after the Mavi Marmara incident, and I went back another time. 2 times I was called by the FBI. The first time I was called, I received them. They said, yeah, they would like to talk to me. Okay, absolutely no problem. Come on, they knew my address, so they came to the address in my mom's house. And we sat down and we talked for, I think, at least 2 or 3 hours. I've never, you got a question for me? The only question I will not answer is any question about my family, and fuck off. Including my address, fuck off. You know the address anyway. Fuck off. I'm not telling you that. I'm not going to let low-level assholes fucking have access to my address who might be so fucked up they want to use that information against my family. No fucking way. But, you want to ask me about why I do what I do, who I've met, and so on. I'm not going to give you names, but I will tell you flat out, yes, I've met people that you would deem to be terrorists. I've said that directly. Yes, I have. And I have every right to meet anyone I want to meet. Does that mean I agree with them? No. If I met with George Bush, would you imply that I agree with him? No. I don't fucking agree. I'll meet with him. Fucking bastard, but whatever, I'll meet with you. So the second time that I met with the FBI, this was really telling. What was this? This was like 2000, maybe 11 or 12. And I came back. Keep in mind, I've got a dive business. At this point, that would have been a dive business that was in place for 12 years or so, 13 years, something like that. And a very special business, in fact. And some special people working there. And I have come back. I've been gone for most of the time, but I come back every now and then. So I'm back now. Ken is back, infamous Ken. And they get a call. They get a call. The receptionist at DB Ecology, my dive business, get a call from the FBI. Oh, yeah, hi, we're calling for, this is the FBI, I'm Special Agent so-and-so, and is Ken available? No, I'm sorry, but and they took a message. So here I've got these mostly like Californian influence, diving, they love the ocean kind of employees who care about ecology and so on, receiving a call from the FBI. And so they give me the information. I call the FBI agent. I call him up, and he says, "Oh, thank you for calling us back." I said, "Yeah, no problem. What can I do for you?" Well, it's we've had. I said, what is it? The Israelis saying I'm a terrorist again? And he said, "Well, yeah, exactly. Except they're now saying that you received money from Hamas." And I remember immediately when he said this, I said, "Is that right? So how much are they saying that I received from Hamas?" $400. And I laughed like that. I said, I guess I'm a cheap son of a bitch, aren't I? $400. And he laughed as well, and he said to me, "But yeah, we know this is bullshit, and these words I'll never forget, and we don't like the Israelis." I'll tell you what, man, the attitude towards Israel has changed profoundly, and I'm part of that. You thought I was a traitor. I'm exposing how the enemy within has fucked your nation. And 22 Americans committing suicide a day is testament to the fact that fighting wars for Israel is not good for America. And that's what you're doing. So you don't like me? You think I'm fucking anti-American? Well, what fucking ever. But he didn't think that way. And I can assure you, he was a reflection of a lot more people. There are good people in America who aren't pedophiles. They're not criminals. They're good, God-fearing Christians, no matter how much you may oppose whatever religion. They're good people. They have wives, they have children, and they are bothered in a way that they had never experienced previously. And I'm part of the process of helping them understand that. So I'm optimistic. I loved it. And I sat down and talked with him for 2 or 3 hours as well. And I tell you, we had heart to hearts. And I've had many such conversations. Every time I go into the United States, I am treated like a terror suspect. It is ridiculous. They literally follow me everywhere in the airport. They follow me into the fucking bathroom. I walked into the bathroom and watched them come in. Are you fucking seriously gonna follow me into the bathroom? You have just fucking looked through everything in my bags. You have inspected me more than once. And yes, they follow me into the bathroom. And then when I go to the gate, I have seen up to nine fucking TSA fucking agents at the gate. After I went through a double, triple check at the fucking security area, and they're following me through the airport into the fucking bathroom, and then when I come out, there's 9 of them fucking sitting there, and they don't just inspect me, they even have the fucking nerve and audacity to pretend as if when I get up, we're doing a random check. Are you fucking serious? It's a joke. It's a bad B movie. Isn't Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, and fucking Sylvester Stallone gonna jump out any fucking moment and save the day?
Great. So we have one last question. Okay, so just one last question.
Hi. Very inspiring. So thanks. And I have one question because there's one thing I've been pondering about for quite some time now. I want to hear your view on the fake alien invasion and Project Bluebeam and all that.
What aspect of it are you interested in me talking about?
I want to hear if you think like it's just a fear tactic or if it's like, yeah, because also I was thinking about your like military past and maybe you had some intel from people in the business or yeah, business. So maybe you knew something that some of the other speakers didn't know. I don't know.
No, I'll disappoint you there. But I mean, in general, whatever it is that we're being manipulated to believe, of course, the same rule always applies, and it's a useful tool because part of why I think I resonate with a lot of people is that I've been able to recognize the pattern. Once you recognize the pattern, this stuff is all so transparent. It becomes very easy. And, how can we keep up with every fucking new development? I mean, it's too much. We have jobs, we have bills, we have to take care of our families, to keep up with. It's part of the cleverness of the whole thing. You can't keep up with everything. Jade Helm, another example. Maybe it is the big move. So far, it doesn't appear to be. It seems like another psychological operation to me. Keeping you, I think Mark may have said this earlier, but it's so true. If it wasn't him, whoever it was, but I mean, keeping us in a state of anxiety, a lower vibration, constantly concerned or afraid, that's very powerful in itself. Very, very powerful. And what are we afraid of? I mean, it's kind of ironic, the type of truth that sometimes is uttered from the mouths of prostitutes who pose as politicians. But, Franklin Delano Roosevelt said something very profound in, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Indeed. If you're operating on the basis of fear of what they're going to do with this action or that action, they've already achieved a very important strategic advantage over you. If, however, for instance, as I was talking about earlier, if you're not afraid, I don't believe in death as people understand it. I mean, I'm not making this up. And believe me, I have contemplated the worst realities. I mean, it's part of the mental preparation for dealing with the potential reality of what you do, the consequences of your actions. I have contemplated the murder, the torture, the abduction, the violation of my children. I have contemplated the murder, the violation, the abduction of my wife. I have contemplated the murder, abduction, torture of myself. All of these things are possible. And it's very easy to control somebody if they're afraid of that. If there's one thing one thing that has given me pause over my life, it is that my actions affect the loved ones that I have in a way that was not their decision. That's not an easy one. That's not an easy one that you can never feel good about that. And boy, oh boy, that is the ultimate card they can play, because if you're not afraid to die yourself, if you're not afraid to be, to lose your freedom, making the decision to endanger your family is a tough one. And in this respect, oh, my wife and my kids, oh, forgive me if anything comes to you, if harm comes to you. I can't change that, because shit, man, that's where they can stop any progress. If they know they can't get you, they'll go for those that you love. And what can you do? I mean, if you bow to that, this will continue until we totally destroy ourselves. We have to do it. And let me say this. Don't you fucking clap for me because I'm so brave. I'll tell you what. There are people on this planet all over the world whose names you'll never know, and historically who have done things way beyond any kind of bravery or anything I've ever exerted. I'm telling you, there are people in this world to this day and who have lived, and their names and their numbers will never accurately be known, but I'm telling you, there's shitloads of them. And they stood up and they did the right thing, knowing that the moment they made that move, they were dead. And probably their family would be killed and tortured, and maybe even in front of them, to send a message, and they did it. So many people have done that, you can't imagine. And it's those people that I love and respect more than anyone else. And for them, and for the future of our children, I do the best I can in this insane world. But make no mistake about it, for all the cynics out there who wants to fucking dwell on the masses who are fucking stupid, entranced, and brainwashed, there are warriors, men and women, who have done amazing things, who have stood up and faced death square in the face and did the right thing. Love to you. Love to you. That is a human being. So I don't give a fuck what their agenda is. And I don't give a fuck how cynical people are. There is too many human beings who have lived in a way that is so admirable and so courageous. I will not ignore them. I don't care how much everybody else does. I will not ignore them.
Oh, another big hand for Ken O'Keefe.
Joy to choose. Rock my reasoning. And I go, yeah, baby, because I'm the evil midnight bomber. What bombs at midnight? Ah! Back in the summer of
of 2001, I wanted to move money into some defense-related and home security stocks, which the brokers talked me out of it. Is that because you and your friends were buying those stocks and wanted to keep the price down? Exactly. We felt that with the 9/11 terror attacks coming up later in the summer, that sector of the market was probably triple in value. And once again, we were right. You mean in advance about 9/11? Basically, yeah.
Commander, I think you might want to entertain this some kind of conspiracy. Like that.
This 9/11 attack was not by 19 Arabs. It was not by Muslims. They talk about a Jewish plot.
Everywhere you look, you find a Zionist agent.
A conspiracy by Israeli intelligence. Or by Zionist moles in the Bush administration, allegedly calling the shots in the Middle East. Websites, magazines, documentaries, radio programs, dozens of them disputing the fact that Al-Qaeda was behind the 9/11 attack. A whole web of beliefs has grown to support this conspiracy theory. Listen to these Americans interviewed on Iranian television. This is a big plot to take control of us, to start war.
My name is Brad, and I'm a conservative Republican. Last summer, I happened to come across a video on the internet about the World Trade Center collapse on September 11th. As a kind of demolition hobbyist, I downloaded it and watched it. The title was Painful Deceptions by a guy called Eric Hopschnitt. The video made me angry. I was determined to prove the maker of this video wrong. I purchased DVDs about 9/11, and after watching them carefully and researching thousands of websites and archives on the internet, I realized the official story, not Eric Hopschnitt's Painful Deception, was unprovable, unsubstantiated, absolutely wrong. What you're about to see is information you should already know. Our news reporters, government, and media should have made all this material available to every one of them.
6 of the 10 9/11 commissioners have stated publicly that the 9/11 commission was hogwash, that it was set up to fail, and it was a whitewash. 9 scientists that were given debris from the World Trade Centers have found evidence of nanothermite, a high-grade military explosive.
Okay, Andy, thank you. We're going to leave it there because we know where you're going. Mr. Chertoff, you can address that question.
This crops up from time to time, and it has been looked at thoroughly by everybody. Frankly, I think when we get this thing going in the buildings, it's I have to say, it's like Holocaust denial, Holocaust denial, Holocaust denial, Holocaust denial.
A myth is an idea that, while widely believed, is false. In a deeper sense, in the religious sense, a myth serves as an orienting and mobilizing story for a people. The focus is not on the story's relation to reality, but on its function. A story cannot function unless it is believed to be true in the community or the nation. It is not a matter of debate. If some people have the bad taste to raise the question of the truth of the sacred story, the keepers of the faith do not enter into debate with them. They ignore them or denounce them as blasphemers.
You cannot debunk this theory. It is madness as well as idiocy to think that the Jews brought down the World Trade Center on 9/11.
نحن نعرف حتى الآن من الذي قام بضرب أمريكا يوم 11 لكن ما يثبت أن العملية عملية يهودية وأن 5 من اليهود طلعوا على رسالة طلعوا على مبنى كبير بسميها الضربة الأولى بالطائرة الأولى قبل أن
Yeah, with the demolition team set off when you see the old demolition of the old building.
It looks like one of those scenes of an old building being purposely dynamited and blown up.
Anybody who's ever watched a building being demolished on purpose knows that if you're going to do this, you have to get at the entire infrastructure of a building and bring it down.
The way the structure is collapsing, this was the result of something that was planned. It's not accidental that the first tower just happened to collapse and then the second tower just happened to collapse in exactly the same way. How they accomplished this, we don't know.
The building collapsed to dust. You don't find a desk. You don't find a chair. You don't find a telephone, a computer. The biggest piece of a telephone I found was half of the keypad, and it was about this big.
What happened to the concrete was pulverized, river to river. There was dust powder 3 inches thick. The concrete was just pulverized.
In addition to those pictures we've all seen too much in television before, when a building was deliberately destroyed by World Trade Center to knock it down.
I sort of stuck an explosion.
Having to do the explosion. That was like several explosions and then subsequent collapses.
The explosion blew and knocked everybody goes. To me, it sounded like an explosion, it sounded like gunfire. Bang, 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 bang. And then all of a sudden, 3 big explosions. We heard a big explosion coming down.
And then the entire top of the building just blew up.
We saw some kind of explosion.
By the force of the explosion.
Big explosion. Blew us back into the 8th floor.
Then we get to laugh.
This big
A lot of people feel a bomb had exploded.
A huge explosion now raining behind me. A huge explosion that we all heard and felt. We just witnessed some kind of follow-up explosion. I heard a very loud explosion. There's another bomb going off. He thinks that there were actual devices that were planted in the building.
You know, the one story about 911, there's a lot of stuff you can hear about 911, but all you need to know about 911 and the fact that what we've been told is a lie is the personal testimony of William Rodriguez. Absolutely. I've heard all the stories. I've been on all the websites. I've read the books. I've seen the videos. I'm here to tell you his personal testimony, his singular experience proves that it's a lie.
Our office was on the B1 level. As I was talking to a supervisor at 846, and all of a sudden we hear, boom! An explosion so hard that pushed us upwards. And it came from the basement between the B2 level and the B3 level. And when I went to verbalize, we hear the impact of the plane on the top. 2 different events. That was the plane on the top. There was an explosion prior the plane hitting the building. The person comes running into the office saying, explosion, explosion, explosion. His hands extended, and all the skin pulled from under his armpit on both arms, hanging on the top of the fingertip. Imagine you take off a glove and you let it hanging. And I didn't know what it was. It was his skin. And when I said, what happened? He was in shock. And what appeared to be a red shirt, then we realized as he got closer that he was drenched in blood. This guy was burning 33% of his body, 33%. And as he got closer and everybody realized that horror, everybody screaming, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And as he got closer, we realized all this part of his face was hanging. And I say, don't move. Because I was going to go inside the office to pick up the phone to call the emergency medical unit that was located on the South Tower. The North Tower and the South Tower connected through the basement. There was like a big loop, but they connected through the basement. And they were very efficient to get there. So I went to tell them that I have an injured person in the office. When I went to pick up the phone,
another explosion, very loud, very powerful. The first started moving below us, and everybody started running to the door frame because they thought it was an earthquake, and they're all piling up by the door frame, all of them. And when I see that, my supervisor, Anthony Santalamaica, started screaming, "It's a bomb! It's a bomb!" But why is he saying that? Because he survived the bomb of 1993. A van was placed on our side of the building, same basement, way below, and it blew up. And it killed 6 people, 1,000 people were injured. And of course, he's acting on his memory.
Let's look carefully at the collapse itself. Notice the puffs of concrete issuing from the sides of the building well ahead of the collapsed wave. Called squibs in demolition language, these are actual explosives, charges firing visibly through the exterior as gravity pulls the building down. Well ahead of the collapse wave. Row after row of explosions. Shattering from the top, engulfed by banana peel plumes, these were no ordinary implosions. The Twin Towers each consisted of 3 multi-story buildings set on top of one another. To sustain the weight of so many floors, the sky lobbies had to be extra heavily reinforced. Watch a big squib coming from the sky lobby band.
The airplane hijackings were a cover for the controlled demolition, which was undertaken by a small group of people, probably just 4 or 5 people. We are never going to know who they are, and it's not worth looking for them. And in August of 2001, I was told to stay out of New York City because the attack was considered imminent. We expected mass casualties and a possible miniature thermonuclear strike, a bomb. However, I want to be very clear. The attack was always defined as airplane hijackings and a strike on the World Trade Center.
flushed out. It looked like a plane. Next thing we go, was boom, and the floor started shaking. And then we saw debris fall down, and next thing we know, people at the building. We stuck on the stairs for a while. We finally got down to the lobby. And then we get to the lobby.
All of a sudden, you just heard this the loudest sound I've ever heard in my life, and got about 10 steps when I got thrown across the lobby, and that's when I lost my tools, my housing, and my axe.
We presume because of the initial explosion, there may have been secondary explosions as well that were detonated in the building by these terrorists. Robert Parker.
Assistant Commissioner Stephen Gregory said, I thought before number 2 came down that I saw low-level flashes. I saw a flash, flash, flash at the lower level of the building. You know, like when they demolish a building? Initially, it was just one flash. Then this flash just kept popping all the way around the building, and that building had started to explode. She said that while she was making her way downstairs, there were explosions going off everywhere. I was convinced that there were bombs planted all over the place, and someone was sitting at a control panel, pushing detonator buttons. There was another explosion, and another. I didn't know where to run.
Oh, you want to call your mother?
Big boom, come down the steps, everything fine till we got to the basement, and everything just fell in. I got stressed one day where another guy crawled out, kept getting hit in the head, bags fell around, causing auto way out over the road. Come on down here, all right, where do we go?
Isaac, for example, has more recently said, I know 9/11 was an inside job. The police know it's an inside job, and the firemen know it too. But you have not heard this on the nightly news.
This feat of bringing a building straight down onto its own footprint requires such skill
that only a handful of demolition companies in the world will attempt it. Well, what the heck? Just put a few random fires in there, maybe some damage, and you saw the towers, they just fall straight down. And you better patent that one real quick before somebody else thinks about it. You know, just some random fires in the building and come straight down. Great. You know, quit paying these companies all this money.
What? He looked at me and asked me, is that a movie? And I said, I outside. It's like a gust of wind and knocked me over. There was something, the windows blew up. And there was a loud explosion and the elevator dropped. And when the elevator dropped, was a lot of debris and cables falling on top of the elevator. And when the elevator finally stopped, they had an explosion that brings the doors inside the elevator. And I'm sure that what broke my leg.
The impact of the explosion, of whatever happened, it threw me to the floor, and that's when everything started happening. And then all of a sudden, it happened all over again. And I just know something else hit us to the floor. Right in the basement, you felt it. Walls were caving in. Everything that was going on. You just knew it was something big. I mean, I know people that got killed in the basement. I know people that got broken legs in the basement. People got reconstructed for surgery because the walls hit them in the face.
Video cameras caught trucks arriving at the World Trade Center from about August 23rd until every night until about September 2nd, September 3rd. And the trucks were arriving at about 3 o'clock in the morning when everybody else had left the building, including the janitorial trucks. And the trucks were leaving at 5 a.m. right before the AAA personalities of Wall Street got to work to start their day. Something was brought into that building that would help with the detonation. There may have been work done on the detonation before. It may have been going on for months, but whatever they needed at the very end, they came and brought in that 10-day period. That's what we think happened.